The biggest mistake that all the analysts make who push back against this is, number one, they're dollar permabulls. They believe that the West can never lose its grip on the hegemony. But more importantly, they don't have the patience to see the long game that the Chinese are playing. And the Chinese, I think, are playing a game that is far more sophisticated than what these analysts believe. They're expecting immediate results. Instant gratification isn't fast enough. But as you can see, they are thinking on every single level, on every level. And I think that it would be a very big mistake.
Gold has been on a record-setting blitz this year, but Chinese investors are increasingly turning their backs on the precious metal in favor of a surging domestic stock market. In August, China's wholesale gold demand fell to just 85 metric tons, 9 tons lower than in July. It was also the weakest August since 2010, according to the World Gold Council in a Tuesday report. Technical trader and expert Andy Schectman reveals that China and its partners are patiently building a new system. As the new bloc represents the majority of the world's population and commodities, the Western media will continue to downplay it until the results become undeniable in a process of slowly, then suddenly. In China, consumers have been reliable buyers of gold over the past 2 years, particularly after an ongoing property crisis and a stock market slump left few attractive investment alternatives. Central banks are taking note. For the first time since 1996, they are replacing U.S. Treasuries with gold as their preferred reserve asset. The U.S. is secretly buying gold. Based on fundamentals, Andy Schectman states that the U.S. has become a massive net importer, with entities like the Treasury Department potentially buying under the cover of national security. Over recent years, gold has shown resilience despite fluctuating market conditions, with prices responding positively to several key factors. The metal's performance has been particularly noteworthy when viewed against the backdrop of volatile equity markets and changing monetary policy environments. The Genius Act could be the start of a new U.S. monetary system. According to Judy Shelton, gold-backed treasuries could be issued by July 4, 2026, a move James Rickards says could revalue gold to $24,000. Before we dive into Andy Schectman's sharp insights from their latest interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss a moment when truth meets the market. Let's get into it.
The biggest mistake that all the analysts make who push back against this is, number one, they're dollar permabulls. They believe that the West can never lose its grip on the hegemony. But more importantly, they don't have the patience to see the long game that the Chinese are playing. And the Chinese, I think, are playing a game that is far more sophisticated than what these analysts believe. They're expecting immediate results. Instant gratification isn't fast enough. But as you can see, they are thinking on every single level, on every level. And I think that it would be a very big mistake to downplay this and to underestimate it. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that they've tried that hasn't worked. But I wonder how many things the West has tried that hasn't worked as well. They can push back all they want, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I think to delegitimize what amounts to the majority of human population, when you put these groups together, the SCO, which is 40% of human population, the BRICS, which is, 40, 50, 60% of human population, the Belt Road, 75%. Of course, there's crossover. But the combination of 3 of the 4 largest nuclear arsenals, the majority of human population, the majority of commodity production and refining, the majority of manufacturing. Vietnam just joined China in the BRICS. And so you have all of this stuff coming together along with rails that are being built that are not aligned with or not compatible with the SWIFT or the West, all the way down to GPS coordinates and satellite technology and military technology. Anyone who underplays this, I think, is a fool. And to their credit, largely, I think, because of what the BIS did by pulling out. You're not going to see media coverage of all of this. It's not going to be very easy and visible to see. Now, you're looking for it. I'm looking for it. But a lot of the analysts, they're not really looking for it. They're just making a blanket assumption that, no one trusts China and no one trusts Russia. They don't even see the fact that no one trusts us. And I don't think they see the progress that is being made. Again, individually, the things that they are doing are impressive and Okay, great. Put them all together, and
Right.
it becomes a whole much more impressive, I think, group of legitimacy. So, I think you'll get pushback on everything until it's right in your face, and they're like, "Wow, I can't believe how far they've come with this." You and I won't feel that way, but a lot of the Western media will. To me, gold is the anchor of credibility. Period. While at the same time you have the digital RMB and the Ambridge that provide the pipes to move value across borders without the dollar, gold is I think the de facto credibility anchor. And I think you're seeing that here in the United States. I think that there is a certain faction of people within the Trump administration who have alerted him to this, that, hey, we're not trusted anymore. And that's exactly what the Russian foreign minister just said in that interview the other day, talking about this, that the West is trying to do this new system because no one trusts the dollar anymore. And maybe they understand that. All of the selling of U.S. treasuries, all of the gold coming into the United States. What does that mean? We become net importers. Massive amounts of gold coming in every single month. Billions and billions and billions. And no one knows who it is. Is it the Exchange Stabilization Fund? Is it the Treasury Secretary doing this under the guise of national security? Or who is it? The point is that for the last several years, the central banks, who are not only the most well-funded, they are by far the most well-informed traders in the world. They are gobbling up gold quietly, using the Western suppressed price in order to run cover for it, hand over fist. What is truly unique is that it's now happening in the United States. There is a recognition by the big players, the big money, the informed money, that gold is significant and is being reintegrated into the system. However that system plays out, it represents the trust in what has become a trustless universe, where countries and banks don't trust one another, and rightfully so. Gold will give the ability, I think, for these countries to once again begin to trust one another. And God forbid it became something here. These nations have the ability to do it. These hypersonic missiles can reach the United States mainland in a matter of minutes. I think that this is something that is just a message that, in particular, Trump's renaming of it the Department of War, that they're prepared to use force to defend their own interests rather than defending. And, again, I would like to hope that it's more theater, more stage, more theater. Because quite frankly, I believe that the United States at the same time is trying its best to shed the world reserve currency.
Okay, so then that brings us to the U.S. response and what you think has been going on behind the scenes. Because war, not a favorable option to either party, regardless of how they may posture and position themselves. And so you have said in our previous conversations that you think that the U.S. is seeing that the other countries are adding gold to their reserves, that this may come to a monetary reset where gold does emerge as a neutral reserve asset, and that the U.S. is planning on beating them at their own game. So for those that have not watched our previous interviews, we will link to them below, but give us a quick recap of how you think the U.S. is then indeed responding to this potential threat.
Well, I think that's exactly what they are doing. I think the passage of the Genius Act is the beginning of a new monetary system to find demand for a treasury that is losing demand, a synthetic demand to run the daily workings of the U.S. government. If Scott Bessent is correct, over $2 trillion a year would be created, and probably a lot more, in U.S. Treasury demand through issuance of stablecoins by every bank and every corporation like Visa, MasterCard, American Express. All the banks would issue stablecoins that would then be backed one-to-one by U.S. Treasuries. This runs the front end of the market. Look, I think what Trump is trying to do, if I'm right, is to bring back manufacturing. Let's just call it what it is. If we don't, we're dead in the water, right? We're massively indebted. 60% of the country has no college education. AI is going to kneecap a lot of the good-paying jobs, and we're reliant on other countries like China to manufacture our pharmaceuticals, our aircraft parts, our military parts, all of these things that we don't manufacture anymore. At the same time, all of those good-paying jobs have left. Now, how do you bring those countries back, or how do you bring those companies back from other countries This is where Triffin's dilemma comes into play. This is why Vice President Vance wrote on White House letterhead that it's no longer a benefit to the United States to be the world reserve currency. Quietly, he said that. The issue is simply this, that I think what they're going to try and do is to, first of all, bring back all the gold. We've seen that. Massive amounts, and yet no one knows who's buying it. I really do believe it's the U.S. Treasury. Massive amounts, and I think a lot more is coming in that isn't being reported. Not, Vince Lancy talks about 80 to 85% of all the gold moving around the world by central banks is not being reported to the IMF. It's not going into the COMEX. It's not going into places that would require reporting. Maybe it's going elsewhere. But let's just take the COMEX at face value. Well north of $100 billion in gold has been imported since the beginning of the year. So if we listen to what Judy Shelton told me, she said, Andy, on July 4th, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the country, the big day for Trump, he's going to issue gold-backed treasuries. All right, so let's just put it all together. And by the way, I said, Judy, will he revalue gold? After all, it's held in the gold revaluation account. And she more or less said, yes, I do believe that he will. Now, what does James Rickard say? James Rickard, who is a very smart man who has been brought into the Pentagon to simulate financial war games, says $24,000 an ounce would be his number. And he gets there by dividing the money supply into the gold, whatever. If you did this, you're revaluing gold, but in essence what you're doing is massively devaluing the dollar, which is what Stephen Mirren, the author of the Mar-a-Lago Accord, has written about, and he's now where? At the Fed, filling the vacant spot. All you keep hearing about is Trump wanting to lower interest rates, right?
Trump's 50% tariffs could be a critical blunder. As Andy Schectman notes, India is a crucial swing state that is now at risk of being pushed closer to Russia and China. As the SCO's new development bank, BRICS expansion, and yuan internationalization all lay the groundwork for a parallel financial system, these moves are steadily eroding the US dollar's dominance. Together, Russia and China control approximately 74% of BRICS' total gold reserves. These countries have been aggressive in their gold purchases, strengthening their financial standing and minimizing the risks associated with currency fluctuations. Despite challenges in building the necessary infrastructure for a shared gold-backed currency, BRICS' substantial gold holdings lay the foundation for new monetary solutions. These reserves have the potential to shift global financial power away from the US dollar, enhancing the economic leverage of emerging markets over Western economies. According to Andy Schectman, the petrodollar is dead. Saudi Arabia's BRICS alignment, combined with a petro-yuan system convertible to gold in Shanghai, marks a decisive shift from dollar exclusivity. A new parallel system, anchored by the electro-yuan for green energy, BRICS expansion, and Belt and Road initiatives, is now being built to settle global trade outside the US dollar. Let's get back to the interview.
You could substitute the word India for Saudi Arabia, and you'll see the same thing. These are countries that understand the significance of playing both sides. And I use Saudi Arabia as a good example because they were so intimately involved in Enbridge and have joined or have been accepted into BRICS, and although haven't fully accepted, they attend all the meetings. The same thing with all the meetings in Novigrad last year. And look, India to me is straddling the middle, and I think that is something that they'll continue to do until this infrastructure is fully mature. They have, I believe, strong incentives, whether it be with Russia for cheap energy or China for manufacturing and technology. I think my enemy's enemy is my friend. I don't really believe that India believes the United States is its enemy, but I also think that they don't look at the United States the way that the United States thinks they look at them. Trump said this is a big deal for India. We are their largest trading partner, and here's 50% tariffs. Now, you levy 50% tariffs on your friend, that isn't very friendly. We've had this discussion before, the privilege of being the world reserve currency and Triffin's dilemma, which we won't get into now, but that talks about trade imbalances. And to levy 50% tariffs on India was wickedly overplaying his hand, because if you look under the surface, the GDP that of India's GDP that goes towards trade with the United States is less than 2%. So the 2% of India's GDP, I didn't really say that very clear. So trade with the U.S. is 2% of India's GDP, and that to me is something that, look, I think, to me, cheap energy and mending fences with China and the big picture of a really growing legitimacy in the global south, the global east, is something Modi understands. And yet, you don't want to provoke Trump, but at the same time, you want to continue to foster and build relationships with these other countries, and that clearly is what's happening here and in Saudi Arabia. It is setting the rails down. It is not about challenging the IMF at this point or the World Bank. It's about building a parallel system. By Xi seeding it with $2 billion and promising more money up in the future for growing it through grants and whatnot, he's showing that he wants the SCO to be far much more than just talk. And when put together with the BRICS New Development Bank, Michelle, I think it becomes far more legitimate. You have the BRICS New Development Bank for growing emerging nations, and you have the SCO for the Eurasian countries. I think it is legitimate. It is setting the rails at this point. It isn't in direct challenge with the IMF, but when you take a step back and you put it in conjunction with the bridge technology, with the massive expansion of the Shanghai Metals Exchange throughout multi-jurisdictional vaults, with the internationalization of the yuan, all of these things that we see, and maybe most significantly, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, saying that these technologies, whether it be BRICS Pay or BRICS Bridge, will be opened up to other nations, all nations with the exception of the European Union, the United States, and Great Britain. They won't have access to it. The rest of the world will have the ability to trade with these countries outside of SWIFT purview, and this is just another example. Now, the SCO bank will be more for developing countries and infrastructure, not for challenging IMF dominance. But when all of these things are put together and formally finalized, yeah, the IMF and all of the Western institutions will, I think, greatly lose significance if left unchallenged, of course.
So the blueprint for a new monetary order.
100%.
To that point, we had Putin really pushing for SCO bonds. This is a proposal. It's still not taken, but it's strongly under consideration. And Putin wants a bond collectively issued and backed by various member countries. Is this feasible? Is this a potential threat to U.S. treasuries? Does it take away from dollar demand? Should this happen? What's your read on the SCO bond?
If issued in local currencies or someday the shared currency like the unit, I guess you could say that it does give currencies the ability to trade without reliance on the West. And ultimately, it could go to challenge the West. But over time, it might even become like the Eurasian version of the U.S. Treasury. I wouldn't say that that is where we're going just yet, but people often talk about pushback to the BRICS as well. They don't have a bond market that can challenge the West. So here again, laying the seeds, laying the infrastructure for this to happen. And certainly over time, it would reduce demand not only for the U.S. dollar, but also the settlement status. So when you take a look at this big picture, all of these countries together trading in local currencies chips away at the settlement status of the U.S. dollar. Things like this and things like expansion of gold, which isn't replacing currencies, it's replacing what stands behind the currencies, just like this, right, chips away at the settlement or the reserve status of the U.S. dollar. You bring Saudi Arabia into the BRICS, they became, although they haven't, again, straddling, they were the fifth formal entry or member of Bridge, again, showing where their allegiance truly is. They said that, yes, we will continue to take dollars last year when they severed the exclusivity and didn't re-sign the 50-year deal that they had, that Kissinger had set up. All of these things are happening, and when you look at the Petro-Yuan bond, it's a bond that they would issue to buy oil that they then can convert that into yuan, into gold directly at the Shanghai Gold Exchange. That's been going on for a while. So you have the Petro-Yuan, which deals in fossil fuels, and then you have this new what's it called? The electro-yuan, which is for green initiatives. Really, it's just to challenge the dollar's dominance in all global energy trade. Again, little by little, they are laying the foundation. You'll see this everywhere you look. They're setting the foundation in the understanding that it's about commodities, and it's about energy, and it's about renewables, and it's about precious metals. And, uranium, rare earths, all of these things, not only are they taking a massive position in through things like the Belt Road, the expansion of the BRICS, the countries that are joining, all have they're all very much resource rich. And here again, this is just going to show that here are ways to settle outside the dollar in everything from commodities like gold, or to things like renewable energy, or to fossil fuel energy like oil. It's just a continuation of laying the foundation.
While China is not yet a regional hegemon, it can increasingly prevent the U.S. from asserting its sole dominance in the Western Pacific. As the world faces a turbulent mix of inflationary pressures, geopolitical tensions, and shifting monetary policies, the price of gold has surged to new heights, prompting investors to reconsider their strategies. If central banks and BRICS are preparing for a gold-backed order, how long can the US dollar remain the world's dominant reserve currency? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.